2 o'clock. It is now 2:01. This is Economic Development meeting, subcommittee of the Springfield City Council. We're joined here by the Director of Economic Development, Tim Sheehan. We're also joined by Brian Connors of the department. We have Pat Greenlaw, the gentleman in the corner.
Matt Fontaine.
Pat Fontaine.
Matt.
Oh, Matt.
Yeah.
Hi, Matt. How are you? Can you hear us?
Yes, thank you.
All right, terrific. I believe committee member Jose Delgado will be joining us. If he is not, he might be joining us via Zoom. Let's see if he's in the. I don't see him yet, but he may be joining us shortly. All right, gentlemen, we are here. We have two agenda items: Bruce Landon Way and district improvement financing. So to give us an update on what the goings on of Bruce Landon Way, Mr. Timothy Sheehan.
Thank you. As the garage is coming to completion, council members probably will recall that there were improvements that were being done to Bruce Landon Way, and that there was an acquisition of a parcel of property that was a surface parking lot. Ultimately, the Convention Center Authority was responsible for all of the street improvements and the redevelopment of that surface parking lot into an activated green area that ultimately would provide some retail and some entertainment venues, and also could be programming space for the authority itself in terms of them being able to lease that space out for functions, and also to be able to display some of the convention materials that are coming in. For example, if they had a landscaping convention, they would be able to take the work of the landscapers and actually run it all the way down Bruce Landon Way, so that ultimately all that's not locked inside of the convention center. It's actually out in the street and open to the public to see. And the green area in terms of the parking lot was intended to actually be activated space, so that it could be used for pre and post concert venues, activation, and pre and post game activities. Mm-hmm. All of which is basically saying bringing more concentration and visibility to all of the events that are coming in and out of the Mass Mutual Center. So I wanted to give you a little bit of update on that. So the punch list work is being done on the garage. We expect the garage to open in March. There's going to be a little bit of punch work left to do. My expectation is that by summer, the green space will ultimately be accomplished, and most of the street work has been accomplished in terms of setting the infrastructure for Bruce Landon Way, which is significantly different because the intent is for that to become a pedestrian environment. So that meant that the sidewalks are basically merging in with the street. There's no longer a step up to the sidewalk. Mm-hmm. So it's relatively seamless in terms of the pedestrian having control of that whole area. The agreement that we're getting into, and I'm sorry Tom Moore is not here, we've been going back and forth with a draft easement agreement with the Convention Center Authority, which would allow them to ultimately close Bruce Landon Way whenever they needed to do that. But other than that, the street would be operational. So, wow. So they would be able to give the city notification that on this particular date, the street will be closed from these hours. They wouldn't have to go through a whole permit process to close that down. The easement agreement will also have a requirement that they're to maintain all of the infrastructure that's in the easement area.
So we're joined by committee member Jose Delgado. Jose, you're on mute, but just want to welcome you to the committee hearing. And just unwind that, what Tim just presented to the committee just a little bit. Bruce Landon Way, correct me if I'm wrong. It's the street obviously next to the Civic Center connecting which way. And it's right underneath that new, relatively new electronic sign. It's really added a lot to Court Square. And so if you could maybe explain that perhaps to the committee members who have not been working as closely on this project as you have a little bit more. So the green space, you mean, where are you?
The surface parking lot that used to be a parking lot area between the old garage and the buildings that front on Main. That was a surface parking lot. That's going to be transformed into this green programming area by the Convention Center Authority.
Terrific. And so then,
and as part of the agreement, the city will have the use of that space for a number of times for if the city's got reason that it wants to promote something or it wants to have it available for a nonprofit event.
sure.
The city would also have a number of programming periods that it could use that space.
And then conceivably, somebody who wants to use the Mass Mutual Center for a convention could apply for a permit, and then we could close down Bruce Landon Way.
That's the feature of the easement is that they no longer have to go through that permitting process.
Okay.
They have the ability to basically contact the city.
Yep.
It's going to be a notice period of 28 or 48 hours to basically say, give the city notice that Bruce Landon Way will be closed between these hours, and then they just have the ability to close it down.
And they could put whatever they want out on the street.
You can see the Thunderbirds, for instance, you know, they throw their block parties before games sometimes.
Yeah.
Where they want to do things out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's
post game.
It's exciting.
It's kind of a miniature Yawkey Way type of thing. So that, you know, you have a lot of programming that's going on, pre and post events that are at the Mass Mutual Center.
Yeah, well, I can tell you the electronic sign really has added a lot to downtown Springfield. It's given
It puts a lot of excitement for
it
sure.
does.
Yeah.
A lot of people notice it. And when they're coming to Springfield for the first time, it's a good way to, you know, get acquainted with the city and what's going on. And then you add the excitement of closing down the street and a block party or a convention, especially in the summer months. I mean, with the aesthetic of the parking garage, I like how they've put that wrap around the parking garage so it doesn't look like a parking garage. So no, that's great work. It's positive news for the city of Springfield. It's positive news for downtown, and it gives a little bit of life and a little bit of a spark to the Court Square area. So I think everybody is excited about that.
Good.
So is there any comments from Jose? Do you have any comments you would like to add with this good news and good update from the Economic Development Department?
No, this is exciting. I just was curious because the way you were describing it was the intention, so it made me think that something was changing, but you're not saying anything's changing. We're still going along with the plan. I mean, I remember seeing, you know, a PowerPoint presentation of what that whole area is supposed to look like. So everything's still on schedule is what it sounds like, correct?
That is correct, Counselor.
Okay.
The only issue that I'm kind of bringing to your attention is that some of the punch work stuff relative to the green spaced area is going to be deferred a little bit in terms of time because the priority was to get the garage open.
Got it. That makes sense.
And maybe you could just kind of explain a little bit more in terms of the problem we have. We're told for closing down these streets is obviously with public safety, the police, the fire. How does that work? And is there any objection from, we'll say, the fire department or anything like that?
No, in terms of the plan was fully reviewed by the impacted departments ahead of time. And there was no objections to the ability to have the closure of the street. And it was fully reviewed by DPW, fire, police, etc.
Terrific. Well, I mean, again, just to reiterate,
Mr. Chair, just one question. I know I heard you say that you're closing off the street. So are you elevating the street to the sidewalk, or are we lowering the sidewalk to, like, what's the transition going on there to make it all?
The sidewalk is seamless to the street. There's no longer a step up.
Oh, okay. So you guys already did that. Oh, all right.
Yes.
Or they already did that, I guess.
They already did that. That was part of their construction work. There's, in terms of the differentiation, Counselor, between the sidewalk and the street, it's different materials are used so that it's clear that when the street's open, that's the sidewalk and it's not the street.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. I did have questions because I know, part of my interest, and I know this was kind of mentioned in the development of the garage itself, was this whole talk of like retail space. Because one of my biggest concerns has always been that Dwight Street is not walkable. It's a bunch of parking lots and building, facades that go right up to the sidewalk. Are there any announcements that you guys are aware of in terms of like what that retail is going to look like, or is it just specific to like the teams?
The retail is included into the design. My understanding from the Convention Center Authority is that they are looking for a restaurant operation that would be reflective of a sports bar.
Okay.
Which I think is in keeping with, what you would want in that area immediately across the street from the convention center.
And that retail space only abuts Bruce Landon Way, or does that retail space have access from Dwight Street?
It really, it doesn't have access from Dwight. It has access from Bruce Landon Way, and it actually has accessibility out to the green space area that we're talking about, where the old surface parking lot used to be.
Okay.
So
yeah, that was just,
it's kind of looking over that improved green space.
yeah, that improved green space, that, like, I thought I saw something that was kind of Times Square-ish in terms of like that whole like raised area. I don't know if I'm
There's clearly
calling
gonna,
that.
yeah, there's going to clearly be a differentiation from the green space in terms of you're going to know that you're walking into a separate area than from the, say, the street.
Got it. Okay. And are we losing side street parking on Dwight Street on that side of the garage?
The parking spaces, there, I believe there are remaining, they're planning on remaining some handicap spaces because the Convention Center Authority needs those.
Yeah, I was just more worried because I know there's been a lot of impact because of the closures, but I'm worried about like folks that actually live, across from there and then within the downtown area, just making sure like there's still spaces, there's businesses that are out there as well. So I was just curious like what was happening, if there was anything happening on Dwight Street, for that. And then just,
There's no impact on Dwight Street in terms of loss of spaces. The impact was over on Bruce Landon Way, and there weren't that many that were left on Bruce Landon Way.
Perfect.
When we started.
Okay. That's all for me, Mr. Chair.
Terrific. Again, it's terrific news. We have other participants on the Zoom call. I don't know if anyone wants to make any commentaries on this first portion of Bruce Landon Way. No? Okay, then the second part of the hearing is District Improvement Financing Program.
The handout Counselor, I'll email you the handout on this, district improvement financing. We're here today really to give sort of an introduction to the program. It's a program that's existed in Massachusetts for quite some time. We just haven't used it in Springfield in quite some time. We have used it in the past. It sounds like TIF, but it's got a couple of major differences from TIF. So
That's the interesting part of this. So in terms of TIFs, in any other part of the country, TIFs are structured like this. And only in Massachusetts, they have a TIF program that's really not a TIF, but they have a DIF. And it's just like, okay, let's make it a little more complicated. So we did one DIF a long time
Industrial
ago.
Park.
But I think, what we wanted to do is take the opportunity to bring this back so that you're aware of it. We're looking at, potentially deploying this as a resource, and wanted to get, feedback from you, as to what your thoughts are relative to it. So I'm sorry, Brian.
No worries. And so I guess the similarity part of it is in both TIF and DIF, you're talking about the increase in taxes from new investment. So whether that's a new company coming in or new real estate value being added. And so in the case of a TIF, you do that TIF to basically help that one business kind of get their feet on the ground. After a new investment, we don't whack them with a huge tax bill in year one, and you phase it in over time. A DIF is different because you're looking at a district. So you basically build a boundary of a district. It can be several blocks. And what you're trying to do is capture new growth of several properties. And what the city can do with that is basically finance improvements to infrastructure with that new growth. So that's sort of the main difference of it is, basically you're using the increase in new growth from projects to help finance. It can be infrastructure, and we don't have to go through all these slides, but you'll see types of investments supported by DIF. It can be either public investment or private investment. So you can actually use this to help finance, a business coming in or a large private development. In our case, we could use it to help finance a parking structure or water and sewer lines or things like that. Remediation, cleanup.
And so basically, to someone who's not familiar with all the parameters of a DIF, main difference is if it's in a district, it saves the participant applying for these tax credits the burden of going through all the hoops through the city council as an individual hiring a lawyer and whatnot. It's not kind of an automatic thing, or am I incorrect?
No, there is legislative approval of it.
Okay.
So ultimately it comes to the council and the council has to vote on it.
Yeah. For each individual project.
For each individual.
So what is the advantage of having it in the district?
One issue is, as Brian was saying, our TIF structure is a direct benefit to the business and the business alone in terms of the tax relief that's given. This, you're actually creating a district, and you could leverage the new growth that's in the district to actually pay for infrastructure improvements to raise that district up.
Gotcha. Okay.
That the city then would be able to say, okay, rather than putting this infrastructure improvement into our general fund, we can actually basically do it off of our bonding capacity and not have to go out for a city bond, but actually have this be the structure of repayment of a bond relative to infrastructure improvements.
Gotcha.
So rather than, a TIF is basically a savings of the one property owner. This actually keeps all of that tax revenue, new and old, within the district, or the new growth within the district in an investment.
So you would anticipate hypothetically these projects that this would facilitate and assist in projects such as
South Main.
Okay.
So for example, and I think this is a pretty good one. McCaffrey's development is clearly new growth that's coming into the South Main Street area. If you created the district for there, you could basically say, okay, the infrastructure improvements that are being proposed are X. And rather than the city going out to bond for that X, it's going to use the diff payments as the pay down of that infrastructure improvement.
Gotcha.
Because the diff bond isn't tied to the city's direct borrowing.
Gotcha.
Because there's a repayment source already identified.
Gotcha. And how large can these districts be, and how many can you have when the city of Springfield? Are you limited, or how does that
Yeah,
work?
Percentage
so
of the
it's-
city.
Yeah, it's, it can't exceed 25% of the community area, and the terms can be up to 30 years.
So 25% of the geography?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so that could that,
That's a
Yeah, you wouldn't-
maximum.
You wouldn't really look at a district like
Yeah.
that size. I
Yeah.
mean, but what it's saying is you could do, like, we could do districts in various neighborhoods. You just can't combine all that geography. It can't be.
Can't be more than
25%.
25%.
could you do like, say, from the Paramount down to the south end? Would that be 25%, or would that be?
That would be less than you could,
Yeah.
yeah, that would be.
So you could fit a diff into that.
Yeah.
Is that what you're envisioning, or like?
What they're basically saying is that when you look at creating the districts, you can't have more than 25% of the city as
Yeah.
in a district. There would never be a district that's 25% of the city, but you clearly could look at
Downtown.
targeted areas.
Yeah.
And, you might come, as you indicated, if you're looking at distressed areas in terms of Main Street, you could be saying, from the Arch down to Union Street could
Okay.
be a district.
Yeah,
One important distinction, and our assessor friends are on the phone, but one important distinction is it only captures new growth based on economic investment. It does not capture just standard, your taxes went up this year. We don't grab that as
Got
part
it.
of the increment. It's got to be part of a development project or new real estate value, not just standard growth.
okay. Patrick, we have you on the line. If you have any commentaries on this, or you just.
I don't. I think Brian, summed that up very nicely. Yeah, so it would only be the growth that would be generated from any new development that would be utilized for the diff.
And that's the same with the TIF.
Yeah. And we have Matt, and we're also joined by Counselor Melvin Edwards, I believe. Melvin, if you want to join in, Melvin, or Matt, if you have any commentaries here? No.
So just so the counselors are aware, I mean, this is clearly a close interaction in terms of looking at, a proposal relative to a diff with the assessors, because the assessors are making a determination of, what the value of the tax revenue is going to be. So it's the assessor's office, the finance department, and economic development all in the same room, putting together, a thought process around a diff project. So, it's bringing finance, the assessors, and economic development together to figure out what the city might want to do.
Well, I mean, this is the basic blocking and tackling of economic development, and I think it's positive that you brought it to the committee's attention, and that we're in the beginning stages of pursuing it. And I mean, how long do you anticipate to get it from where we are to where do you want to go?
Yeah, they're a little more significant than a TIF in terms of the background work you have to put together. And I should mention the one that did happen in Springfield was the Smith & Wesson Industrial Park.
Yeah.
So the roadway that was built out there behind PFG, that was built using a DIF district and using the new revenues from PFG. But there is a good amount of legwork once you get one started. I don't think you would see us with one of these for, a couple of months, I would think.
Oh,
Yeah.
we probably got till fall.
Yeah, it's gonna take some time, but we wanted to get out in front and kind of bring this project or program back up to the council that, it exists, it's something we're looking at and something we may hopefully be utilizing in the next year or so.
What if any potential downtime, I mean, in other communities, is anyone ever opposed to this? Why would they be opposed to this? I mean, why would you?
I think sometimes it's the new growth that they're opposed to.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a question about a housing development ultimately being gentrification of an area.
Yeah.
But again, it's got a pretty lengthy tail in terms of public engagement. There's a public process for consideration of this that engages the public. You begin to hear those things back, and then you try to figure out how you can mitigate. Well,
any tool in the toolbox that's going to help spark some development and interest in downtown and the districts that are proposed. And as you map those out, I think it's welcomed by all the city officials, city councilors alike, as well as the residents of Springfield. And so we appreciate your bringing this to the committee's attention. And we're also joined, I see, by my friend, Vice President of City Council, Tracy Whitfield. Councilor Whitfield, you're here. If I don't know if you want to join in
join in. I love joining in economic development conversation. I don't know what we're talking about here. I was looking for the information, but I just wanted to give a shout out to Brian real quick in front of the whole team here and the great work that he's doing with the TDI initiative and being very responsive. The Mason Square TDI initiative, his response time is impeccable, like going after resources to help us make things happen and make this TDI collaboration successful. So I did want to say that, Brian, thank you so much.
Thank you, Counselor. Appreciate it.
All right. Well,
so where I think we're going with it is that we probably would take the opportunity to come back before the committee when we have something in a draft form to, run by the committee and make sure everyone's up to speed with it before it, ultimately goes public.
Okay. And this slideshow, maybe we could get this to Sean Young and we can get it to all the counselors.
Sure.
It's out in the committee, so everyone can go and read through it. And then, we have input on how large this district's going to be and where the parameters are going to be and what positive impacts it'll bring to the city. But again, I mean, these two agenda items, Bruce Landon Way, make it more accessible and allow more walkability and outdoor events downtown. And then the district improvement financing program, first brought to the committee's attention. Again, this is the blocking and tackling of economic development, and hopefully it sparks some further interest in downtown, some excitement, and a little bit more opportunities to say, welcome to downtown Springfield and the city of Springfield and invest in our city. So that's kind of the update. It's a brief hearing. I don't know if anyone else wants to have their input. Councilor Edwards, Councilor Delgado, Vice President Tracy Whitfield.
Yes, if to the chair, I just have one quick question. I don't know if it's appropriate to ask at this time.
Sure.
With Brian and Tim there. My question is the proposed courthouse that is being proposed or may be built in the city of Springfield, would it be paying taxes to the city?
Yes, in the structure that they have now, where it's going to be privately constructed, there would be a tax component, but I guess the only question that I have on that is whether the state would then infer that because the majority of the use is government, that it be exempted. But the way that they're looking at the structure right now, the building is going to be privately, and Patrick, you might want to, if you can opine on it. That's the only concern I have relative to the tax side of the equation, is that the state DCAM could ultimately say that the majority use of the property is for governmental purposes.
I think probably we could hold a whole other meeting on that. So,
But it is intended to be privately owned, and the state would be paying rent.
Okay, and Sean, you're absolutely correct. Perhaps there should be a meeting to discuss that, because the other question is the funding sources. Depending on the funding for this particular project, does the REO have jurisdiction over encouraging the hiring of local minority women veteran contractors?
well,
And is that dependent on the funding?
I think those are great questions. We need to address them, but I think not in the parameters of this hearing would be my.
Okay, thank you.
But we also have Councilor Whitfield, if you want to.
Oh, so were we talking about the MGM funds that went to Bruce Landing Way and to the district? Is that what this meeting was for? Because I do have questions about that.
Sure. We had an update on Bruce Landing Way and the new configuration of making it. We closed down Bruce Landing Way, so people who go to the convention center might have events outside in the summertime and fall and whatnot. And if Tim wants to expand upon that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not fine. I'm fine with Bruce Landing Way. I want to talk about the other funds, and where they're going, what they're going to be used for. I don't know if that's all been determined yet, but just seeing that was it 7 million, 7.2 million from MGM funds that we've been asking to like have a little bit of involvement in like the uses of MGM funds, and then to see this with no involvement was a bit disturbing. So I just wanted to kind of find out what your all plans are.
There were budgets that were submitted for the uses, and I thought that those were sent out to all the council members. I thought Kathy sent those out.
No, I think a letter went to the council president about how the funds could be used now, and it's determined by the mayor, but we never received it. She did send it to me, and it did go to the council president, but he, his dad passed, and then a bunch of things started happening, and I think he forgot to send it to the rest of the council from what he said. So we didn't even know until we got into the meeting that this had all taken place. And I'm not opposed to it. I think my questions are more about like downtown. I drove downtown for the first time at night in a long time, and it was beautiful. I mean, the candy, the bowls, the this, the that. I mean, I was like, I love it down here. But I want to go to like my neighborhood where I live. I want to be in Ward 2, and I want to be like, oh, look at the Plaza Street. It's beautiful. Or Mason Square or Indian Orchard. Like, how can we get more of that? And I do love that we're doing it in a TDI a bit. For Mason Square, but I just want to know how can we get more resources to the other part of the city. And I know that having a vibrant and beautiful downtown is the key to economic advancements for the city. So I understand it all, but these are the questions that we get, Tim. Like,
So let me just respond that we did the neighborhood planning efforts in terms of putting together the 10-year spending plan for each of the neighborhoods that we did a plan in. And the thought process that we're going through right now is identifying funding resources to implement what the community has told us that they want to have implemented in each of those neighborhoods.
gotcha. Okay, so we got to find money. It's always about the money.
Well, it is about the money.
The Benjamins.
But let me check in with Kathy on, I thought that the budgets in terms of the project budgets were sent to the council, but I'll double check on that, Counselor. And if they haven't been, I'll make sure they get out.
Okay, and Tim, so this 7.2 million is for downtown also?
Yes, it is for specific projects in the downtown.
Okay, and that's what's on the PowerPoint?
No. This was talking about the district improvement financing program.
not a specific project.
It's
So
no
this is
specific project.
this is a state program that we're looking to potentially utilize for a few different projects in the future, but we're talking more in general just about the program rather than the project.
It's an economic development tool, and we hadn't used it in a long time, wanted to bring it up for consideration, get, the committee's feedback on it. But it's not specifically identified for any particular project at this point in time.
Oh, just for the financing?
Just to get an understanding as to, the structure, what it can do, what it can't do, if there were any concerns about it within the committee. Well, you talk about the example that we used before.
Smith and Wesson
Street,
Industrial
yeah.
Park, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, the one time we used this, counselor, was probably 15 years ago. The Smith and Wesson Industrial Park, may have been even a couple of years longer than that. So the roadway that was built there was built using this program. And so basically, the new investment when Performance Food Group was built there, the new tax revenue was captured. We were able to bond against that and then build the roadway that leads to what is now FW Webb and the solar park back there. So it's a financing tool. It sounds like TIF, but it's different. It's different from TIF in that the increment of new growth is actually captured and put into an investment within the district.
And the other important aspect to it, counselor, is that bonding that the city's doing for that infrastructure investment isn't reviewed by the rating agencies because it's considered not a direct payment coming from the city. It's basically the tax revenue that's being captured is paying for that debt.
Gotcha. That makes sense. One thing that I wanted to bring to your attention, when I put downtown looks beautiful. Have anybody wrote on Facebook? Someone said, not where I work. And I was like, well, where do you work? And they was like, the Amtrak section, the riverfront section. Is there any plans to like light that up or I don't know.
The lighting went all the way from the north end to the south end.
Yeah.
So
but I guess going back to like where the train is and riverfront, they said it's like dark back there, but I don't know.
Okay, well, we'll look into that. I know that there were, like Lower Liberty is dark for sure.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know, but I just want to see it throughout the whole city because I was like, look at Springfield. It was so lit up. It was beautiful. I was like,
even after the Christmas lights come down, I was told this morning, I was questioning the lighting in Court Square with all the improvements. And I was told that all the lighting has yet to go on because they're waiting on the transformer from Eversource. And that's supposed to happen sometime in March. But the lighting in Court Square is going to be highly elevated from what all of us remember. It's going to look really stunning.
yeah, it's so nice. And
all the monuments are going to be lit up, and it's going to be pretty cool.
It looked so safe. It was like people were leaving Mass Mutual Center and everybody was like walking around and it was like 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock and it was kids out there. I was like, okay, Springfield, I'm gonna take my family downtown. So
it's amazing how lighting can make an area instantly feel much safer. Safer,
yes. I can't wait to get through the Mason Square project, even though it's pretty small, we could grow it over time.
Yeah.
Just happy to see it. So I didn't really have any complaints. I just didn't know how the whole money transfer came about. But like at first I was gonna come and complain until I went downtown. So God brought me downtown first before this meeting. So but that's all I really had. I didn't want you all to rehash that again, but it's glad to hear the information and I look forward to getting the slides.
All right. So some positive developments here and some positive comments. So we look forward to further updates and we appreciate you keeping the council surprised at this level of transparency. And thank you very much. So if there's no further questions, I will adjourn this meeting of the Economic Development Subcommittee. There's no objections? All right.
No
Take
objection.
care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.